Okay, so what if I told you that one of the most common, well-intentioned things we say to encourage people, you're so smart, might actually be setting them up for failure? It sounds crazy, right? But let's dive into this idea because it's backed by decades of psychological research and it could completely change how you think about praise and success. So, this is the big question we're tackling today. For generations, we've pretty much all believed that praising someone's natural talent is the secret sauce for building their confidence. But what if that whole belief is just wrong? What if those simple words, "you're so smart," are actually making people less resilient? And look, this isn't just some random theory. This quote is from Carol Dweck, a Stanford psychologist who's the pioneer of all this research. What she found was that this kind of praise, the kind that focuses on who a person is rather than what they do, doesn't create confident learners. No, it creates fragile ones, people who are absolutely terrified of not living up to that smart label. All right, let's break down this whole peril of praise thing. When we tell someone they're smart, we're essentially praising a trait they see as fixed, something they're just born with. And without even meaning to, that sends a really dangerous message. That success is about having some kind of gift, not about growing or learning. And that just changes the entire game. And here's where it gets really interesting. There's a huge psychological shift that happens. The person's main goal is no longer about learning something new or mastering a skill. Instead, it becomes this high-stakes performance to prove that the label, that smart identity, is still true. Suddenly, any potential failure isn't just a mistake. It's a direct threat to who they are, and that makes them want to avoid challenges at all costs. So this deep fear of failure can be explained by two totally different belief systems that Dweck discovered. They're called the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Think of them as the underlying software we all run in our heads about our own intelligence, and they basically dictate how we respond to, well, everything, from a tough exam to a major setback at work. Let's look at the core difference here. Someone with a fixed mindset believes their intelligence is just a static trait, kind of like your eye color. You've got a certain amount of it, and that's that. But someone with a growth mindset, they believe intelligence can be developed, that it can be cultivated through hard work and good strategies. And this isn't just wishful thinking. It's actually backed by neuroscience, showing our brains are incredibly plastic and can form new connections our entire lives. And of course, these two beliefs lead to completely different goals in life. For the fixed mindset, it's all about performance, looking smart, getting that A+, getting that validation. But for the growth mindset, the goal is about learning. It's about embracing challenges because those are the very things that make you smarter. Now, this all sounds pretty good in theory, but where's the actual proof? Well, let me tell you about a pivotal experiment from 1998 by Claudia Mueller and Carol Dweck. It's a brilliant study that showed, in the real world, how just a few words of praise could completely change a kid's behavior. So, here's how it went down. First, they had a bunch of fifth graders solve some problems, and they all did well. Then came the critical part. Half the kids were praised for their intelligence. You must be smart at this. The other half were praised for their effort. You must have worked really hard. After that, they were given a choice for their next task. Then they faced an intentionally difficult set of problems that they were guaranteed to fail. And finally, they were given one last easy set of problems. And the results are, well, they're kind of shocking. The kids who were praised for their effort, their scores on that final easy task actually improved. Failure didn't crush them. It motivated them to try harder. But the kids praised for being smart, their scores plummeted. For them, failure felt like a final verdict on their ability. It triggered what researchers call a helpless response, and it just destroyed their performance. So what does this all mean? It means praise absolutely matters, but the type of praise is everything. The solution isn't to stop praising people. It's about shifting from praising the person to praising the process. This is the real key to fostering a growth mindset, not just in others, but in ourselves too. I mean, this table really lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? Person praise, like "you're so gifted," focuses on those fixed traits, and it leads to people avoiding challenges. But process praise focuses on things you can actually control, like the strategy you used or the effort you put in. And that's what builds resilience and makes people want to take on a challenge. So what does this actually sound like in the real world? It's all about being specific. Instead of a generic "good job," you could say something like, "I love how you tried different strategies on that problem until you figured it out." Or you could praise their improvement or their persistence. This kind of praise gives real, actionable feedback and reinforces the idea that success comes from things that are totally within our control. Now, let's be honest, growth mindset has become a massive buzzword. You hear it everywhere. And because of that, its real message often gets oversimplified. So, to actually make this work, we need to understand a little bit of the nuance and avoid some of the common traps that even well meaning folks fall into. One of the biggest traps is what Dweck calls the false growth mindset. This is the mistaken belief that you just have to praise effort no matter what. But think about it, praising effort alone isn't enough. If someone is working incredibly hard but using a totally flawed strategy, just telling them great effort isn't helpful at all. The real goal is to praise the process that leads to learning. And it's also super important to remember that nobody is 100% growth mindset all the time. We're all a mix, and the real skill is learning to recognize when our fixed mindset gets triggered and knowing how to shift back. Ultimately, this whole thing comes down to a really powerful way of reframing what it means to struggle. A growth mindset teaches us that challenges aren't there to measure us, they're there to develop us. So the final takeaway is this. Failure is not a final verdict on your ability. It's just feedback. It's just information. The real question is, how are you going to use it?